think if I just push that down, that's probably going to clip in. Hello and welcome to this video on quick repair on a Ford Focus, making sure you don't get ripped off by garages, and a service on a Seat Arona. If that interests you, stay tuned. Let's get to it. Right then, so what is a quick repair on this Ford Focus? It's a 2015 Ford Duratec Ford Focus, and this is the Titanium X model, but I'm sure it's the same on all of them. This car was involved in a front end accident many years ago, and it looks like this washer bottle has been bodged on using some zip ties. So we've got a new neck with the cap, and we've also got a bracket because the bracket's missing, which should hold this on. So the bracket goes here and here, and somehow fixes on down there. We'll figure that out in a minute. So first thing I'm going to do is get some snips, snip this off and get this one removed. Okay, so pair of snips. Just cut the ties holding that on, and if we can see down the bottom there's just a seal. I'll zoom in on the seal there, and all we should have to do to remove this is give this a little tug, and that seal is going to come out with the neck. So let's go ahead now and get the replacement neck, make sure it's the same, which I'm sure it is, and we're going to have to swap over this seal as well, and then we can have a look how we fit the bracket, which fits over these two bits here and somehow hooks in down there as well. So let's get the replacement filler neck. So just checking these are identical, and we can see they've got the same kind of fitting at the top, similar in shape. This is the bit which sits inside the bracket, and as we said, we need to swap over the rubber seal, so that will just easily slide off the old one, and if we can do it with one hand, it's just going to slide back onto the new one, nice and easy. And this is the bracket that we've got, and this here hooks in to that hole there. That hole there is what this hooks into, but we have to fit this to the car. So let's head back to the car and see how this fits on. Okay, so looking at the bracket here, we've got a clip at the bottom I'm pointing to, and I think that's going to hook around that little bit at the bottom. If you can see, I'm going to try and point to it just down here, my finger right next to it there. So it's going to clip just around that piece there at the bottom, and the two bits here are going to be what holds it down. So this is going to have to go behind this. So can I do that with one hand without damaging anything? I'm sure I can. So that's got that over there. I'm going to need to just bring those to sit onto those. I'll zoom out slightly so you get a better view. I think if I just push that down, that's probably going to clip in. There we go. That bracket's now fully clipped in and secure, which now gives me the option to slide in a new filler neck. So let's go ahead, get the filler neck and see how that slides in. All right then, so we've got a filler neck with a seal on. I'm just going to feed that round here, and you can see that I'm just going to clip this plastic piece into here as the bottom goes into the actual reservoir, and we heard that satisfying click, and that means that this is all now nice and secure. The seal down here is in. So that is your replacement filler neck. Nice quick easy job with a new bracket. We got these off eBay and they were only about 15 quid for the new filler neck and the bracket. So that's completed the repair from many years ago, after this car was involved in a front end accident that wasn't done at the time. The only sign now that this car was ever in a front end incident was this bit here. And I'll talk more about this car in another video. We will be doing a service on this car soon, and a cam belt as well. So again, keep watching hit subscribe if you've not already done so, and hit the bell icon to make sure that you don't miss out on that video in the future. Now let's move on to that Seat Arona. And here is that Seat Arona. It's a 2018 Seat Arona FR. This is the 1 litre 3-cylinder engine. Now this particular car belongs to a young lady, and we've seen the car before. The car came to us last year with a report of some scraping or knocking or grinding noise coming from under the engine. The lady had taken it to a local garage who had advised her that it was the cam chain that needed replacing in the car, and it would need a water pump, and the bill would come in at around £1,000. Not too keen to be paying £1,000, the lady brought it to me to have a look at the car, and I'm going to go ahead in a moment and just lift the bonnet and I'll show you what we found. The repair itself was actually free. It took me all of about half an hour to do, and I think that's why we're getting the lady come back to us today. Okay, so if the camera wants to just come in, what we did is we took this cover off here. Now it's very easy to take off. We just unclip that. There's a clip around the back, as I recall, and there's actually one bolt underneath here. And when we took this off, there's a wheel inside here, a cam wheel, and one of the bolts was actually coming loose, and it was actually almost ready to fall down in there, and it's ground a hole on the back of this cover. What I'm going to do, when I do get on with the service now, as doing part of the service, I'm going to take this cover off and I'll show you what will come loose, because I actually want to check to make sure that bolt's not come loose again. We did actually put some thread lock on it this time, but clearly someone's been in there and done a job previously and not tightened those bolts up properly. So we're going to go ahead, and that's one of the things we're going to check, which is additional to the normal service that you do. But because this car's had the problem, we're going to make sure it's right. So that was a completely free repair for the young lady, and it saved her nearly £1,000 on a garage bill. So I'm not saying the garage was deliberately lying, but they certainly didn't take this cover off and have a look like we did. So garages aren't always to be trusted. So if you're going to take your car to a garage, make sure it's someone that you've used regular, or you've got a good recommendation from someone and they can be trusted. If you just take it to a main dealer, you should be okay, but again, I've heard horror stories from main dealers as well. So that's why this young lady's brought the car here today for me to do the service, because we did her a good turn and we made sure that we didn't rip her off, and we did that repair for free. So let's get on with the service. Okay, so I'm just going to undo this carefully and take this bolt off. Just have to be careful we don't drop this bolt, because it's a mechanic's worst nightmare, dropping a bolt down the engine and struggling then to find it again. So let's very carefully remove that. There's your bolt. Let's see about taking this cover off. Fairly sure there's only one bolt holding this on. Let's have a look. We've got a clip down here. That's that clip off. We have a clip down the back, and this cover will come off. So as I turn this round, can we see? We can see this groove mark here. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. That's where one of the bolts over here, one of these bolts, was actually almost hanging out, and it was about to fall down here, and we can see that this is your cam belt. So while we've got this off, we can actually inspect the belt itself visually, just to see if there's any signs of wear, any signs of cracking on there, and this belt looks to be in good order still, which it should be. So we're not going to go any further, but what I will be doing is just checking the tightness of all of these to make sure that they are still tight and not coming loose at all. They all look to be good visually, but I'll just go ahead now and get a torque bit and make sure that they're tight. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do before I check the tightness of these is just put this rag across here. And the reason I'm doing this is because it is very easy to drop something. Now if something falls down inside here, inside the engine, we've got serious problems. So it's really important to make sure that we're very careful Okay, and that's the wrong size. Just get the next size. We do. So I'm just going to check the tightness very carefully to make sure that these are still nipped up. Yep, that one's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. Now the last one I can't, or maybe I can actually, I can get to it. I was going to say if I can't get to it, I'll just turn the engine over very slightly, but I can. Yep, and that one's tight as well. So you can remove those tools out of the way. You can take this cover off out of the way. I'll go ahead now and refit this cover, which is the reverse of what we did to take it off. So it's got to go behind these pipes. I just need these clips open. As that goes back in. Not quite getting this one in. Just need to make sure we get this all the way back so it's seating correctly, which it is. And then we can just drop those clips back in. There's one. I need a screwdriver for that one, so I'll come back to that one in a second. What I will do now is very carefully place this back in. Now, one of Steve's top tips, this isn't magnetic and there is a risk of it falling down there, so if you want to make sure this isn't going to fall down and you have no magnets to make it magnetic, you just get a very small bit of white tack or blue tack inside there and push them together. That will hold them together. So I'll go ahead and get some now and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so here's a little bit of white tack which we keep for jobs like this, and I only need a very small amount. I'm just going to, if that's too much, I'm going to place that inside the head of the bolt, get my tool, squish that in there so it's in, and as you can see that's held nicely. So I can now go ahead and very carefully place this where it needs to go. Now that's in there and started, do it by hand. Get the ratchet, and this is just being nipped up. We're not over tightening this. It's plastic, remember, we don't want to break it. There we go. Remove that. We see the white tack comes out with the tool, and that's that job done. Okay, let's get on with the service. Okay, so the first thing we need to do for the service is get this airbox off. Now there's a couple of pipes which we can pull off quite easily, and there's a pipe here to remove, but these clips can be a bit of a pain. A lot of people will just get a big pair of pliers or something similar, squeeze this together to release it. There is a proper tool for it, and you can see the proper tool here. And what this does is, as we squeeze it together, those jaws are closed together, and that will close this together. And then when we want to release it, we just press this in here, and that releases it back out again. I'll show you how that works. We place one over there, and that's allowed me now to fully release that. And I can then put that back over there and release, and that's removed that pipe nice and easily for me. So I've got another one of those to do around the back, so let's go ahead and see if we can get our tool onto this one. Now this one actually is going to be a little bit more difficult because, as we can see, there's not much squeeze there to get that to release. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and release everything else first. We'll have this pipe off here. Now there is also a Torx bit down here to undo, so I'm going to undo this Torx bit, and that will just leave that last one there to remove at the back, so bear with me here. just release that. Now you can use electric tools, electric ratchets to undo all these kind of things and do them back up. Myself, I do prefer to do things by hand, because it's often when using pneumatic tools or electric tools that we find that we over tighten or actually physically break the plastic of whatever it is we're tightening up. So that's released that. So now there is just this clip at the back to undo to be able to get that to release. So because these are very close together, I'm actually going to use pliers to squeeze that instead of the tool, because it will actually be easier on that one. So I'll go ahead and fetch a pair of pliers and we'll get that released. Okay, so I'm going to use these long nose pliers. I'm just going to go around here, squeeze that together and then release it. Now when it comes to putting it back on, these may or may not open wide enough, and I think they will, so I'm going to be okay. But if not, I would go ahead and use the tool that I showed you before for that. So that's got our airbox off. What we need to do now is to undo the bolts that go all the way around, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those, and our air filters inside there. Now it is a good idea while this is open, because this is open into the intake system, to put something over there to cover it. Some people use a glove like what I'm wearing, cover it over. Some people might put a rag over. The problem with that is, of course, if it's a microfiber rag or something, you could get bits of that drop in there as well. So a rubber glove is a great idea just to put over there to seal it up. Let's go ahead now and get these off. And here I am just placing a rubber glove over that intake, just to make sure no debris that while I'm working on the car or anything floating around in the air is going to go into the intake system. So I'll go ahead now and undo all 9 of these Torx bits, and we'll speed the video up while we're doing that, because it's pretty boring, and if you've seen anyone undo a bolt, then you've seen someone undo 9 bolts. So feel free to fast forward this little bit of video until we get the airbox open. If you want to enjoy it, please do keep watching. And that little piece I was just pointing to there is a rubber grommet which is worn. I'm touching it again there. Just saying that that particular grommet is something that may need replacing later on. It's just something which helps balance the airbox on the top of the engine, stops vibration or any rattling noises as we go down the road. And this is a good time to say, if you're enjoying the video, please do go down, hit the thumbs up button while you're down there. If you haven't already done so, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future videos. And please do share this video with your friends and family if you think they'll find it interesting. Okay, so we've now undone all of the bolts. So I'm going to carefully remove the air filter top. And looking at the air filter itself, we can see it's been doing its job. Little bits like this that I'm moving out of the way. And you can see the discoloration of the air filter as well. That's all the dirt that would have otherwise been sucked into your engine. That should be a nice yellow, but it's dirty. And if I take it off and we turn it over and have a look at the other side, you see it's a little bit cleaner, so it's definitely been doing its job. So that's what the air filter should be doing. The housing, it's a good idea to inspect it and make sure there's no debris that's got through the air filter and is sitting in there, and no signs of oil or other contaminants that might signify there's some other issue inside the engine. This one looks absolutely fine, so there's no need to go ahead and clean this one. So we can go ahead now and replace the air filter with a new one. Okay, so let's just have a comparison of the old air filter and the new air filter. And we can check the size as well and make sure it is exactly the right size, so we've not been given the wrong one. And we can see clearly the difference in colour now between the old one and the new one. So let's go ahead now and actually fit the new air filter into the housing. And we just put that in there, and then we place the top on. And if we can't get it on first time, we might have put it on back to front. So as you can see here, that's not going on. So I do actually try it the other way, just in case that's the reason for it not fitting together. So I turn it round, very quickly realise that's not correct. So it was actually the right way around the first time. And in situations like this, if you're struggling, just take the air filter out of the housing. And this is what we're going to do here. And we're actually going to place it into the other side. And then we'll try and put it back together in the opposite orientation, and you'll see here that it goes together much easier. So that's obviously the easiest way to do it on this particular airbox. So I'll go ahead and actually get those all tightened up, those bolts. But before we actually put the airbox back, we need to look at removing the ignition coils. Okay guys, so now we're going to do the spark plugs, and I've gone ahead and removed this one already to show you how these actually held in. If you look at the very top here, this is your coil pack. and there's a little nodule there, and that clips inside there. So to get it out, you just need to raise it up, and I've used a small screwdriver here, just going through there, just to raise that by putting some pressure upwards. Now, even though I did that, I couldn't just pull this off, so what I ended up doing was using a slightly larger screwdriver underneath the base and just prising it upwards. So like on this one, it may come up a little bit easier. I'll give it a go, or on camera, just to give it a little bit of help to actually come up. I don't want to damage the clip. I'm trying to lever against, I'm levering against the bolt head here, just slightly lever that upwards, and once it's released we can remove the screwdriver. So I'm going to go ahead now and undo this one as well, and then I'm going to undo these 10mm bolts, and then you can join me as I remove each one of the coil packs. Okay, that's all three of those off. Let's now get the 10mm and just loosen all three of these off. And I'm going to just get an extension for that last one onto here to raise it higher to actually get that off. These will all be the same, so it doesn't matter if you do get these mixed up. Just a long 10mm there. And these just secure the coil pack down over the top of the spark plug. And for those that don't know, the coil pack replaced the old ignition coils in cars from a long time ago. Nowadays, each spark plug has its own coil pack. What that means is, should the coil pack fail, years ago we had a coil, and if that failed, all of the cylinders would get no spark and the car would break down. Now with separate coil packs, if one goes down, you've still got other cylinders working, so the car's less likely to just stop at the side of the road. So now we've got that bolt removed and we've got the plug undone. Might need a little bit of effort, but we should be able to lift up the coil pack itself. There we go. This one's just been a little bit of a pig. If we do need a little bit of prise again, you can always go underneath just to help raise that upwards, because there's a little bit of suction on these with a seal. There we go, we heard that pop. That's it letting go, and that's what we've got. So your spark plug is inside here. Well, it's down there, but it goes into there, the top of the spark plug does, and that's what delivers the spark. So we're going to do these one at a time. That coil pack's out. We'll replace the coil packs in the place they came out of, and we can see, if you bring the camera in and look down there, we'll be able to see the spark plug down that tube. There we go, so there's your spark plug. So to get that out, we need the correct size spark plug spanner, the socket down there. And again, if we're struggling to get that out, you could use a piece of white tack like we did earlier, or if you've got a magnet on a long bit of extendable metal, as I do, you can just bring them out using that. So I'll go ahead now and get this spark plug out. Okay, so we'll go ahead now and take this spark plug out. So we've got our tool in there and give it a little push, and this should loosen up after a short while, so I should be able to do it by hand. Now, some spark plug tools actually have a piece of rubber in them which will help lift the spark plug out as well. And I know I said you could use white tack, but it's not ideal for putting them back in. It's okay for taking them out, but it's not ideal for putting them back in, because you don't want that on the top of the spark plug head. So if your spark plug doesn't come out, as ours hasn't, what I was saying before, you can get something like this telescopic magnet. And if I place that down in there, as you can see, it lifts the old spark plug out. And it's always a good idea to just inspect the ceramic to make sure that's not broken and cracked, and this one isn't. And then we can have a look at the end and just have a look at the coloration. And that nice light brown coloration there tells me that this spark plug and the cylinder it's been running through is actually working fine. We've got a good colour there, so there's no reason to think there's any issue with the running of the car. So now let's go ahead and get the new spark plug. Okay, so these are NGK spark plugs, and they are 94224. They're laser iridium. Quite different to the old style spark plugs, the way they are at the top, and that's so it connects to the coil differently. And as I say, to put this one back in, I'm going to use a magnetic tool so as it don't drop and cause a problem. Once it's in there, I can just turn it a couple of turns so it actually starts on the thread, and then I'll be able to remove the tool. And now with the spark plug in, I can place my socket over the top of it, and then I can tighten that back down finger tight, and then I just use the ratchet to give it a nip. Again, we're not trying to tighten this down as if it's going to have to sustain mega force, because it's not. We just want to just give it a nip. So that's finger tight, and I'm just going to go there. That's it. That's as tight as that needs to be. Okay, we can remove that. Now we can go ahead and place that coil pack back on there. I just need to make sure the connector is out of the way. We're not trapping any wires as we place this back down. Give it a nice push. You can see that's seated. And we're going to go ahead now and put the bolt in its place, and we can then go ahead and connect that connector back up. Okay, so I've just tightened that down finger tight, and again, just going to give it a little twist. There we go. Just to tighten that up, we can now get the electrical connector, place that over, give it a little push down. We should hopefully hear a little click. We didn't hear a click very loud, but I can tell you I felt the click, and that's gone on. Normally you can hear a little bit of a click when those kind of connectors go together, but on this one there was nothing to hear, but that's nice and solid. So that's one spark plug done. We'll now go ahead and do number two. Well, actually that is number three, so we go 1, 2, 3. So we've done 3, we'll do number 2, and we'll then do number 1.
Although I did go ahead and video the entire process of replacing all 3 spark plugs, I'm actually going to cut the video here because we don't need to see me doing the same thing 3 times. So we'll move on now to the oil change on the car. So now we're going to get on and do this oil change. First thing I need to do is jack the car up. So I've got the jack underneath the lower arm on the left hand side. I shall just bring the camera with me. I'll go underneath the car and I'll show you exactly where the jacking point is that I've used for jacking the car up. Here we go. As you can see, like I said, underneath the lower arm, and we have an axle stand underneath there as well. You can just about see that going forward. So we've lowered the jack down onto the axle stand and left the jack there, so we've got 2 forms of support. So we know we're quite safe now to climb underneath the car. And if I spin around, you can look up and see where the oil filter is. I'm pointing to it now. Now the easiest way to get this oil filter off is to remove this lower trim panel, but we can just flex it down slightly without putting too much stress on, and that will still give us access to the oil filter with the oil filter wrench. And as long as we're careful, we won't spill any oil anywhere that we can't actually wipe it away from. So let's get the oil filter wrench now. And here is the oil filter wrench we're going to use to remove the oil filter. And all I need to do is pull that down slightly and put the wrench onto the filter and just gently twist it. And I like to do this just maybe 1 or 2 turns, as we've already done already. You can see the spot of oil, just to release the pressure before I take the oil out. So what I'm doing now is just going to pull that panel down slightly, and I'm going to put my hand in there, and I'm just going to unwind anti-clockwise the oil filter until it feels loose. And I do have a collector vessel underneath, so if any oil does drip out, and some will as I'm doing that, it won't drip all over the floor, it'll go into the vessel. And I do also have some card on the floor as well to protect the ground, just to make sure if any oil does happen to miss the vessel, that it's captured by the cardboard and not all over the ground. Looking up now, we've taken the oil filter off all the way, and we can see with some drips of oil, and there is the vessel which has caught all of the drips. And good we had the card there, because we can see that some did actually fall aside of where the vessel was to catch the oil. So we need to give that a good clean to make sure all of the oil is away before we put the new filter on. And the reason for this is we don't want to leave old oil lying around, because if we do check back and we see oil around, we might think there's an oil leak later on, when in actual fact it's just where we didn't clean up. The oil filter removed, it's now time to start pumping some of the oil out. So I'm using this thin pipe down the dipstick hole, and I've got this thicker pipe going into a receiver vessel. I've got my positive connected to the positive battery and the negative to the chassis of the car, and if I switch that on, it will start pumping some oil out. Now, you might say, Steve, what on earth are you doing? You should be draining the oil from underneath. And yes, we will do that. But as I've shown in previous videos, I do like to pump the oil out first to get the majority of the oil out. It just stops the big flow of oil coming out of the sump at the bottom, and again the potential for it sloshing everywhere all over the ground. And we'll just take a quick look inside the end of this pipe into the vessel. We can see there's still a little bit of oil coming out, so we'll keep this going until we've pumped as much oil out this way as we can. And it may be necessary to actually lift this pipe in and out, as I'm doing here, just to make sure that we're actually capturing where the oil is at the bottom of the sump. Don't be afraid to lift it out and then place it back in again, as I'm doing here, and just keep playing around with it until you're happy that you've got all of the oil pumped out of the engine. And with all of the oil pumped out of the engine, we can head back underneath the car, and I'm just going to zoom in and show you where the sump plug is. And there it is. Now, it's a good idea when removing the sump plug to have either a replacement sump plug and a copper washer, or at least a new copper washer to ensure a good seal when replacing it. So I'm going to go ahead now, undo the sump plug and capture the rest of the oil from the sump, and then I'll replace that with a new copper washer. Now I'm going to go ahead and just make sure we've cleaned all of the bottom part of the engine, and of course this plastic panel which we bent out of the way. Any oil that's dripped on there needs to be wiped away now and made clean, because we're now ready to go ahead and install the new oil filter. And here is the new oil filter. It's a QFL 0314. Let's go ahead and remove it from its box. And we'll find at the bottom of the oil filter there is a protective cover on there, so I'll just go ahead and remove that. A little bit tricky with one hand, but can we do it? Yes, we can. That's good. Move the box out of the way. Now, this particular type of oil filter will have a rubber seal, as you can see here, and it's important to get a little bit of oil, whether that be old or new engine oil, and just pop that on there just to help with the sealing. And some people will say you should fill the oil filter up, but please do tell me when you offer the oil filter up how you're going to ensure that no oil actually pours out again. So there's no need to do that. So we're going to go ahead and put some oil on the seal, and that'll just help with seating it and not trapping the seal when we tighten the oil filter up. And just to say, when we do start the engine, as you'll hear, you may hear a little rattle for maybe 1 second, just while the oil is pushed around the car by the oil pump and the oil filter fills up. But that really will be only for 1 second, and I can guarantee it won't cause any damage to your engine. So don't be afraid to refit these without any oil. Let's go ahead now and take the oil filter over to the car and get that fit. So here we have the filter. I've just flexed that lower panel down slightly, and I've just put the filter on clockwise, and I've just tightened it up hand tight, and just giving it a little nip as tight as I can hand tight, so that that seal is performing well and we shouldn't get any drips of oil later. So I'm just going to give it a quick wipe, as you see here, to make sure that we've got all of the oil that was lying around from when we removed the filter and any drips that may have been there whilst we fit the new filter. So all that's left to do now is to top up the oil. Now, if you've got any doubts in your mind as to whether or not all of the oil is out, you can always take your dipstick, give it a wipe, and just place it back in the dipstick hole and pull it out, and you should find there is no oil at all on the dipstick. Now, of course, this doesn't mean you've got all the oil out. It just means that the majority of the oil has been removed, but it's a good guide just to check. So I'm going to go ahead now and remove the oil filler cap and go and fetch our oil. And the oil we're going to be using in this car is a 540 DX oil. Now, when we remove the yellow cap there from the top of the oil can, underneath there is actually a seal. Now, that seal needs to be removed in order to get the oil out, and there's a few ways we can do that. Some people use a screwdriver and just try and prise it up. Some people, like myself, just try to put your thumb through it and then peel it backwards. But whatever you do, we need to try and ensure that that seal doesn't fall inside the oil can. If it does fall inside the oil can, then we're going to need to use a filter of some form when pouring the oil into the engine, just to make sure that we don't contaminate the oil that we're putting inside the engine. So I've gone ahead here and peeled it back, and I'm just going to give it a quick wipe around the edge just to make sure the plastic seal has been removed completely. And now I was going to pour the oil in, but what I'm going to do is just show you another top tip, and that's to put a rag around the edge of the filler area where we're going to pour the oil in. So if you do happen to spill any oil, it's going to fall onto the rag instead of falling onto the engine. If you do spill some on the engine, try and get it cleaned up as best you can. If not, you're going to find that when you're driving the car and it warms up, you'll have a nasty smell of oil coming in through the air system, the air conditioning system of your car. So let's go ahead now and pour a couple of litres at least of oil in, and we can see there is an actual indicator on the oil can there at the side. So if we're unsure how much we've poured in, we can certainly stand it back up and just check against there. They're marked in 1 litre segments. So we'll go ahead and pour the oil in. There we go. And then we'll put that to one side. I think we've put enough oil in to start and just have a check. There we go. So I think we're going to put a little bit more in. I think we've put about 1.5 litres, so I want a little bit more than that. So let's keep going, pour some more oil in. There we go. Like I say, we want at least 2 litres of oil going back in there before we check it on the dipstick. Now it's worth mentioning at this point that while we can put the dipstick in and check the oil level, we've not actually circulated any oil around the engine. So the oil filter for sure is completely empty, and the journals too. So it's fine if it's right at the top of the dipstick. If it's anywhere other than the top of the dipstick, we need to definitely keep filling it. So let's just pull this out now, have a look, and let's have a look there. Yep, that's close to the very top. And if I'm unsure, of course, I can certainly give it a wipe and just check it a second time. So let's do that. Let's give it a wipe, and then we'll just pop that back in. There are actual marks on each dipstick on your vehicle just to show you exactly where the minimum and maximum marks are. And yep, that's right at the very top of the maximum mark. So this engine is now good for me to replace the dipstick and then put the cap back on. And then we can remove all of the rags out of the way, and we can go ahead and start the car. And we probably will hear a small little rattle as we start the engine for about 1 second, as I said before, but it's really going to do no damage whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead now and just turn the engine over, fire it up briefly, and then after about 3 or 4 seconds switch the engine off so that I can go ahead and then check the oil level again. Now you can't actually hear the engine running, but you did see the vibration there as I started the engine. The reason you can't is because the microphone actually packed up, so we're having to do this all as a voiceover, but I can assure you the engine did start. There was a rattle for about 1 second and then it went. So what I'm going to do now is leave it for a few minutes for the oil to settle, and then we'll go ahead and check the level again. And it's been about 5 or 6 minutes now, so the engine oil will have settled at the bottom of the engine. So I can just pull the dipstick out, give it a wipe, and then we'll place the dipstick back in, and then we can check the level. So in it goes, pull it out, and let's have a look. And we're about halfway up the dipstick, so we definitely need to put a little bit more oil back in the car. So I'm going to go ahead now and put that to one side. I shall remove the oil filler cap as we did before, and I'm feeling quite confident, so I'm going to go ahead and pour some oil in without using the rags this time. And we're going to put about another litre of oil in, because that's roughly the amount of oil that the oil filter will have taken away. And then we can check it one more time and just see if that oil indeed has taken us back to somewhere near the top of the measurement on the dipstick. So in the oil goes, and that looks about right to me. So yeah, that's good, no spillage. So we'll put that to one side, and it just take a moment for the oil to go through the journals of the engine, of course, and sit back down in the sump. So I'll just pop that cap back on, and it'll give me a gauge at least if I now wipe the dipstick and then place it back in and give it a check. But I'm going to give it about 5 minutes just for that to settle so that I get a more accurate reading. Okay, so I've had a cup of coffee, left it 15 minutes, and I'm just going to check one final time and just take a reading from the dipstick, and that looks about perfect. We're right at the very top of the dipstick. Of course, if you're unsure, you can wipe it and you can do a second reading, no problem with that. And let's have another look. Yeah, right at the top of the dipstick. So I'm happy with that, no problem at all. Let's replace the dipstick, and that's our oil change done. Okay, and that's the service done. Now, you may say, Steve, you've not checked things like the brake fluid level or been around and checked the tyres and all these kind of things, and for sure, we're going to do those things off camera. Today, I just wanted to talk about the misdiagnosis by the other garage and how you need to be really careful when listening to what garages tell you. And if you're unsure, do get a second opinion. and to show you how to do the basic service, spark plugs, oil filter and air filter on the car. All we need to do now is go ahead and reset the service light, and for that I'm going to need to plug in my diagnostic equipment. So I'm going to go ahead now, get that plugged in and show you how we do that. Okay, so we've got our diagnostic equipment connected. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick scan of all of the systems on the car. I'll fast forward through all of this and we'll pick up and we'll see if there's any historic codes in there while we're here before we go ahead and do the service reset. Okay, so I'm going to speed the video up while we go through the smart scan, and it'll scan all of the modules in the car. And it's very clever, this top-down Phoenix. It actually knows what modules each car has, and if it does happen to check some that aren't there, that aren't options on your car, it'll grey them out. And we can see that we've got a few faults in the car. These may be current or maybe historic. There was certainly no engine lights on the car when we turned the ignition on. So we'll have a quick scan through what those fault codes are before we go ahead and remove the codes altogether. And then we'll see again, we'll do another quick scan just to make sure they don't come back. Okay, let's go ahead now and remove those and clear the codes and see if they come back. Okay, so one code has come back. Let's have a quick look which code it is that's come back. We'll go ahead, it's this one here. And that just says faulty control module. So there's no engine lights on, there's no dash lights on, and everything seems to be working. So I'm not going to worry too much about that for now. I'll let the customer know that we've got that fault code in there, and if they want us to investigate it further, we can go ahead and do that. But for now, what I do need to do is go ahead and do the service reset. I did the service reset off camera. I just want to show you a little trick. So what I've done with this back clip on the air filter, we actually closed the gap using a zip tie, as you saw there, and that allowed me then to get this tool over it, because the clip actually came off and opened up fully, which made it impossible for the tool to actually reach across, or indeed the big pliers. So just using a zip tie across there to pull the two in gave me enough room to be able to get the tool on, as you can see here, which allowed me to then go ahead and put that onto the tube at the back and allowed me to fully fit the air filter. So guys, all I want to say is, as we finish the video with this outtake clip, thank you very much for watching. I've been Steve. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful. This has been a Knights of England Mechanics video, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da for now.